What's up, Arbor Nation? It's your boy Manny here. Welcome back to the Hoop Report, the NAIA Women's Basketball Podcast, episode number 63, Sweet 16 talk. That's everything is going to be for the next 2 days. I'm going to split this episode up. I'm going to record it all in one sitting, but I'm going to split it up. This will be part one of it, where we're going to preview the first half of the Sweet 16 matchups, and then on tomorrow, Thursday, when you guys are watching, obviously it's going to be Wednesday. On Thursday, you guys will watch the rest of them to get you all ready for those games. Very excited to talk about these. I put them in order of the most exciting games that I feel. So basically, the first game that we're going to do is going to be Lindsey versus Dakota Wesleyan. I believe that is the most excited game. That is the game I'm most excited for, is what I'm trying to say. And then when we scroll down to the rest of the ways, then will be the game that I'm least excited for. And I'll explain why, my excitement levels and all that kind of stuff, breaking each game down individually and whatever, all that good stuff. So we're going to get right into it. The first batch of Sweet 16 games, the game I'm most excited for, like I mentioned, number 3, Lindsey versus number 2, Dakota Wesleyan in the door quadrant. I think it's the best matchup, y'all. I really do. I just feel like it has the most high-end, talent from top to bottom. I just think it's a matchup wise, I think is the best. Obviously, it's the highest seed matchup, the only 2-3 in the entire Sweet 16. But I still think that it is the best matchup from a standpoint of how these teams line up. And I'm going to go through in the tail tapes here for both teams. For the Blue Raiders, they beat Southeastern in the second round. They beat Wesleyan Baptist in the first round. Right now for the tournament, they are averaging 92 points per game, 54 field goal percentage, 42 3-point percentage, 17 free throw attempts. In breaking that down, because I think it does have to, and so depending, especially now once you get to this point of the season, numbers sound great, like 92, wow, 54, wow. But let's look at the numbers as well. Okay, you're putting up 54 field goal percentages, but you're shooting 67 field goal attempts. So meaning you're averaging a normal offensive, possession per game type of a number, where 67 is not high. I think it's not low. It's, again, pretty average, but your field goal percentage, your efficiency is what is above average, and that's why your numbers are worse. So that's why I'm kind of trying to break it all the way down here. For the three-pointers, you're averaging about 17 attempts, so shooting 42% on 17 attempts as a team is not bad at all. And for the free throws, you're shooting about 17 attempts, which is around where all these teams are kind of hovering at. 17, 18 really is what both of these teams are shooting, and you're shooting at a 75% clip. So very efficient from there as well. From a standpoint of turnovers, you're taking care of the ball, 13 turnovers per game, 18 assists, so it is piping around a little bit. We'd love to see that assist go up a little bit more to 20, but not bad. 39 rebounds, 47 paint points. Very, very important mark here. A lot of these teams are doing a very good job at scoring in the paint. 19.5 second chance points, also another very important stat. For the opponents, so taking both Southeastern and Wesleyan Baptist, they were averaging 67 points per game, shooting the ball 40% from the field, 24 from the three-point line, 17 free throw attempts as well, 29 rebounds, 15 turnovers, 17 fouls. Why I'm going to talk about the fouls a lot here, because y'all have kind of heard the consistent free throw attempts, how many free throws you're getting. Those points are going to be the ones that I feel like really separate some of these teams in these matchups. For Dakota Wesleyan, they're scoring about 80 points per game, 46% from the field, 34% from the three-point line, 26 free throw attempts. See, those little things are why I want to keep those in mind as we move forward here. Looking at the turnovers, 12, about even. 15 assists, about even. Obviously, I give that nod to the Blue Raiders, but about even. Rebounds, pretty even, 39, both of them. Opponents, they played St. Francis of Illinois, College of the Ozarks. 54 opponents' points per game, 33% from the field, 27 from the three-point line, 9 free throw attempts. 24 rebounds, 14 turnovers, 22 fouls, right? I have some key players. I have some key stats. Just from that, where I feel like I'm leaning towards is, again, I'm looking at the fouls. Dakota Wesleyan is doing a great job at forcing opponents to foul them. Therefore, they're getting a lot more free throw attempts. Lindsey, not that they're having a bad mark. Again, 17 opponent fouls per game is not a bad mark, but you're pretty much equating it to every foul is a free throw. That's why they're getting 17 free throw attempts per game. For Dakota Wesleyan, 22 fouls, bump that up to 26 free throw attempts, almost 30. That is very, very efficient, and that's where the first thing I'm going to look at. Lindsey has to stay out of foul trouble. They cannot get three to four fouls on their main players especially, but just in general as a team in the first 3 to 4 minutes of a quarter. Remember, 5 fouls in every quarter will trigger the double bonus for women's side of basketball in the NAIA level. You cannot afford to get 3 fouls in the first 3 minutes. That cannot happen, because if you do that, now you're putting yourself in such a situation. You can't be as aggressive. You can't be as active on the ball. Those two can't be as physical as you want to be. So now it's going to help Dakota Wesleyan's offense flow a little bit better. And while they don't have more assists than Lindsey Wilson right now, they still are a team that can move the ball very well. They have a lot of shooters, a lot of playmakers on the court, where if you can't be physical with them, you're leaving them to be able to do whatever they want to do on that side of the ball. Let them know I will make the turnovers pretty even. Both teams are hovering around that 12, 13 mark as a turnover team. From a field goal standpoint, you talk about field goal attempts. Lindsey Wilson actually getting more attempts so far this tournament at 67 attempts per game. The Tigers are at around 60. So those 7 extra possessions, very important. Why I go back to the free throws, though. You might get 7 more shots than they do in the flow of 40 minutes. But if you're giving them 10 more free throw attempts, it ain't going to work out in your favor, right? So that's what I'm looking at specifically for this game. Can the Blue Raiders stay out of foul trouble long enough to get a comfortable enough lead? And then can the Tigers be able to do the opposite, put them in the foul trouble for the Blue Raiders and get to the line and then knock those down? That's very important. Just getting to the line is not good enough. That's half the battle. Great, you got them in foul trouble, whatever the case is. You want to get a win in that possession. You got to both get them in the foul trouble and knock down your free throws. Got to go hand in hand to get a full kind of momentum building opportunities in those. Looking from the half-court side of things, the Blue Raiders are actually shooting better from the three-point line right now, 42% from the three-point line. The Tigers are shooting 34%. Both teams are hovering around the same number of attempts, though. Tigers are above them a little bit higher at 18. The Raiders are at 16, 17. So, again, same numbers, different efficiencies. Very important when we get to this part of the season. A lot of these teams are averaging around that mark. They're going to average similar numbers in terms of possessions, in terms of threes, in terms of free throws. Who is knocking them down more is the biggest part of it. And again, I've said it before throughout the season. Basketball's, however you want to say it, it can be the most simple, complicated thing in the world or the most complicated, simple thing in the world. At its foundational core level, especially in the national tournament level of basketball, or at any level really, it is a make or miss sport. That's what it comes down to. You got to hit shots. The name of the game is putting the ball in the basket more times than your opponent. So, at the end of the day, these teams who are all pretty much around the same mark, it's going to come down to who can make shots when you're tired, when you're winded. Again, the schedule for the rest of the tournament, y'all, is as follows. Obviously, when you guys are watching this, it is going to be Wednesday. The Sweet 16 will start on Thursday. Keep going till Thursday. The Elite 8 will be on Saturday, and then there'll be a break, and then the Final Four will be next Monday and Tuesday. So you've got, if you make it all the way to next Tuesday, you are playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in 6 days, right? Obviously, they're all going to be in Sioux City, so, there's no travel aspect of it. For the most part, obviously, there'll still be some teams that have to, stay overnight, hotels, whatever the case is. But for the most part, who can weather the fatigue, the mental fatigue, the long season? All these teams have been playing since October now, late October, early November. Some of them have been playing a very home-friendly schedule. Some of them have been playing a very travel-heavy schedule, whatever the case is. So you got to talk about those type of things. For the key players that I have in this matchup, each team, I picked three. And obviously, I mentioned each of the player of our pods, or player of the pods that we picked, a tailored guest for Lindsey Wilson. Don't even talk about too much about her. Obviously, she had an impressive 2-game stretch there in the Faulkner pod. And then for Dakota Wesleyan, in the Dakota Wesleyan pod, Avery Broughton, very impressive double-double performance for her. The other two that I mentioned, for Blue Raiders, Jerry Thomas, 13 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 70% from the field, 67% from the three-point line on low attempts. Not going to sit here and say she's averaging 5 attempts per game or like that. But low attempts, it don't really matter, though. If I take 2 shots and I make both of them, hey, that's 6 points right there, y'all. So still want to keep that in mind for her. And then Maddow Tisdale is my biggest one. Obviously, Taylor Guess has had an absolutely great start to the national tournament run. But Maddow Tisdale is what makes the engine for this Blue Raiders team go. She is their best player, in my opinion. 14 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game. She is filling up the stat sheet. If she is the third most impactful player, that is a very good thing for the Blue Raiders. Why I say that? She is your best player. So if your best player has now not that she's playing bad, but just other people are playing better, And she's still doing what she normally does, because that's what her averages all year, pretty much around that 14 to 16 point mark. She's flirted with some double doubles throughout the season. She's gotten double doubles throughout the season as well, flirted with some triple doubles as well. So she's never really fallen off this line. It's the other players around her. Taylor Guest, again, elevated her play in the first 2 rounds of the tournament. Thomas, she's elevated her play as of late in the season. If that's what happens, and not that Tisdale drops, just that everybody around her elevates to another level, that is a very good thing for the Blue Raiders. That is a recipe for success. These are my 3 main players for the Lindsey Wilson Blue Raiders to try and come out with this win. For Dakota Wesleyan, talk about Avery. Next player, Emma Yost, 20 points per game, 58% from the 57% from the three-point line. She has been scoring the ball at an efficient rate. And when you look at these two teams, I talked about the foul count and the foul and the free throw kind of relationship that I could see in a game like this because of what's happened in the first 2 rounds. Remember, I'm only focusing not for every one of these games, but for the majority of these games, I try to focus on just the tournament. I know it's easy to try and talk about the season, and I get that, but I'm a big believer that was the regular season. That was the conference postseason. This is a different level. This is a different level of basketball that you need to play at, so you got to go in with a fresh mind. Every coach always says it's a new season, 0-0. So you got to go into that. I'm going into that with that same mindset. Emma Yost has been an efficient scorer in the first 2 games of the national tournament, and I don't see that kind of falling off crazy. Maybe she'll come down to 50% or a high 40s, but I don't see that falling down anytime soon. Riley Rosenquist is my 3rd most important player. 17 points per game, 63% from the field, 100% from the line. She has not missed yet, 12 for 12. I want to say now apologies to Riley if you miss in the next game. You can put that one on me. But efficiency, right? Looking at the teams and looking at their, breakdowns, quick hits, all that kind of stuff, what I notice is, yes, the fouls and the free throws, but I also notice the scoring. I talked about it before. The Lindsey Wilson Blue Raiders are shooting more attempts, obviously, than the Tigers, 67 to 59. But the efficiency is what I'm more kind of focused on here, because, yes, you're getting 7 more attempts, but 7 more attempts does not equate to over 10 more points, which is what is happening right now for the Blue Raiders to the Tigers. It is the efficiency. If the Tigers, in the flow of the game, I'm talking about the dead ball stuff, free throws, turnovers, fouls, that kind of stuff. But in the flow of the game, if the Tigers are able to slow down the Raiders' hot offense, make them uncomfortable, get that assist number maybe down to 12, 13, somewhere in that margin. If you're able to, they're still probably going to get around their 66, 65 field goal attempts, but that efficiency that's above 50 right now goes to mid 40s, which is where the Tigers are right now, 45, 46. Now it's a different ball game. Now that's what I'm more curious about. And that's why I'm going with the Tigers here. I think the Dakota Wesleyan Tigers are going to be the ones to come out in this victory. I expect maybe the best game of the Sweet 16. I expect this to be the most impressive game from a just wire to wire, back and forth. No one has more than maybe the 8 to 7 point lead. I could expect it to be a possession battle down the stretch. Free throws going to definitely be a factor in this one. I'm going Dakota Wesleyan though, because their defense has impressed me all year. I think their best player in Avery is the defensive focus of this team. She has been kind of that spark for me, at least, throughout the season. And as much as I love Lindsey Wilson, as much as I love what they've been doing, as much as I said at the beginning of I remember saying this going into the tournament about the Lindsey Wilson Blue Raiders. There was a time where they were the hottest team in the country. 6-game winning streak, 5 against Mid-South teams, including Freed-Hardeman, believe it was Georgetown, Campbellsville of Tennessee, like they were just going off and going crazy. The next 4-game losing streak, right? I didn't know who I was going to get in the tournament. In the Mid-South tournament, they lose in the first round to Campbellsville of Kentucky. But patterns and trends, now they come out into the tournament, guns blazing. Really good first round matchup against William Baptist, beat Southeastern in the second round in overtime. So there's a lot of things to go for the Blue Raiders. The reason I go to Dakota West is because they've been more consistent. The Blue Raiders, yes, if they're on the high, 92 points per game. I'm like, that's the level they can be at. But I've also seen them at their lowest. And I don't know what Blue Raiders team I'm going to get from night to night, to be honest with y'all. Yeah, 2 games in, we're looking solid here. But it can all change on a dime, right? So I'm looking at the Tigers being more consistent. The efficiency side of things, I think, comes down a little bit for Lindsey Wilson. Even if they don't have a bad game, even if the Blue Raiders don't have a bad game, I don't think they are a 90-point-per-game team or an above 50% from the field type of team for 3 games in a row. That'd be very impressive. That'd be very impressive. So I'm going the Tigers. I'm looking at those 3 players that I talked about for both teams to be kind of the X factors in this game that can sway it one way or another. but I am going to go Dakota Wesleyan in it this one. My second most exciting game, Hastings versus St. Francis of Indiana. And to be honest, it's mainly, I don't want to say it's mainly on the Broncos side or the Cougar side because it's kind of intertwined. What I mean is, for the Broncos side, it's momentum. You know, I talked about them being one of the highest scoring teams in the opening round. I think the only other team that was scoring more points than them was Dort, but Hastings was the best team to me from an offensive standpoint, just watching them play. And again, talent they were playing against was very impressive. The other side of it is, and I guess maybe it's more about Broncos than the Cougars, because the other side is, does the offense slow down? You know what I mean? Like, there is no way any one of these teams that are here right now are going to have a good offensive run for every game they play in the tournament. Right? If you were to get to the national tournament game, you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games where you are scoring at a elite level. Is it possible? Yeah, but I ain't banking on that, right? So you're talking about right now the Hastings Broncos, maybe the best offense, I'd argue, in the country. I'd argue that. I could give you some numbers to really back that up. They're shooting 45% from the field, 39% from the three-point line, 83% from the free throw line. They're averaging 33 three-point attempts, 84 field goal attempts per game. I think that's the highest in the opening rounds, aside from maybe Dort, who obviously was, no, I lied. Dakota State was actually the number 1 team. Dort was number 2 by a decimal point with the Broncos. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, 25, almost 26 turnovers per game are what they're forcing. 14 of them are steals, 25 assists. Like, they are playing out of their minds offensively. Am I really going to expect that to go another game? St. Francis, it is one of two things for St. Francis, or it could be both things, but I'm going to pick one of the two. Offensively, you somehow match them blow for blow. Can the Cougars go punch for punch with the Broncos, this Broncos team specifically? All right, offensively, right now, the Cougars, 72 points per game. They're shooting the ball at 49% clip from the field, 39% from the three-point line, 23 free throw attempts, only 14 turnovers, which isn't bad. But again, this Broncos team is forcing over 20 plus. So they're shooting 51 field goal attempts, 17 three-point attempts, 65 from the free throw line. I don't think that's the answer. And again, I've loved this Cougars team. I've watched them all year. They've never been an offensive team to me. They've made some big offensive plays. They've got some offensive players. But they have never been a team to me where I look at them and I say, their offense could win them a game, especially in the tournament, right? For me, if you are an offensive team, my question for your defense is, can it win you a quarter or a game, something like that? If you're an offensive team, vice versa. Can the defense, lock in for a quarter or a stretch or a game maybe, and win you that game? I don't think St. Francis team can in this. Again, styles make fights. In this specific game, I do not trust their offense enough to be able to say, win me a quarter by more than 10 points. Because you can win a quarter by 1, ain't going to do much against this Broncos team. But if I'm going to pick the Cougars, it's because I feel like either their offense can win them a quarter by 10, or I even give you by 5 or more points. Or, which is what I think is more believable, their defense locks in, right? They've been more of a defensive team to me than offensive team. They are allowing, in the first 2 games, less than 23-point attempts. They are keeping their opponent's steals at about 6. And their fouls are about 14 per game, 14, 15 per game. So something's got to give here, right? If you are taking care of the ball from a live ball standpoint, your opponents are only having 6 steals a game, and you're going to play against a team who's averaging double that, something's got to give. If you're a team that is not fouling a lot, 15 is probably about average typically, and you're playing against a team who is getting to the line at not a high margin, because obviously they're not shooting a lot of free throws, but they're shooting at a very high clip to where even if they do get, let's say, 5 or 6, they go 6 for 6. That's 6 extra points. Interesting. And then the three-pointer, which is obviously the biggest one here, something has to give. Broncos can't keep putting up 33 field goal from three-point line, and the Cougars keep their streak of less than 20 in the first 2 games. But the real stat that I'm looking at here between these two teams is the rebounds. Obviously, hand up, I was wrong. I had Brush Up beating St. Francis in the first round because of rebounds. That's what I had. St. Francis made me eat my own words. Respect. Even in the next round, though, I could have argued against College of Idaho and them because of the rebounds. This is the game that I think it bites them. If the Cougars cannot keep the rebound margin within 10 rebound difference, whether win or lose, but if they don't keep it within 10, I think they lose this game because the Cougars are losing the rebound battle right now. Like, yes, they've won the first 2 games, but they lost the rebound battle. What that shows you is twofold. They're not great rebounding team, and they can still win without being a great rebounding team. That's the final piece of the puzzle for me for this Cougars team. It's been like that all year. The other part of it is the offensive rebounds. And why would I say offensive rebounds? I say offensive rebounds because for all of you who know, when is the best time to shoot a three-pointer? Off an offensive rebound. Why? Shot goes up, worried about boxing out, probably someone gets loose. Not everybody's going to crash. That's mainly the big thing. Not everybody crashes offensively. Not every coach puts an emphasis on that, especially if you're a guard, small guard, you're told to get back. So you're hanging on the three-point line, seeing if you get a long bounce. Or when your big does get a rebound, especially if you're a good rebounding team, kick out the shooter, open shot. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's the best time to shoot it. They're giving up 6 offensive rebounds, are the Cougars, to their opponents in the first 2 rounds. Remember, that's College of Idaho and Brescia. Hastings is averaging double that in their first 2 rounds. 12 offensive rebounds. So I'm not going to say that the Broncos are going to get that. But let's say they get an extra, those 6 that they've been giving up, right? That's an extra 18 points, y'all. 18 points to a team who is shooting almost 40% from the three-point line. And let's say that the Cougars give up, they're giving up 23 pointers. Again, that's 3-pointers in general. But let's say out of those 20, let's say all 20 of those came in the flow of the game, right? In the half court. The Broncos are going to get turnovers. They're going to get out and run. That's where a lot of their threes are coming from. So you got to add another 5 there. If they get these extra 6, that's how they're getting the 33. Out of the 33 3-point attempts that they're getting, I would say maybe 10 to 12 are in the half court, running sets, stuff like that. The majority of them are in the open court or off rebounds. So the Broncos are going to make that a point of emphasis. For the record, they are also rebounding the ball, period, at a 47 rebound average in the first 2 rounds. So they put an emphasis on this, both defensively and offensively. My concern is the rebounding of the St. Francis Cougars, and that's why I'm going with the Broncos. I'm going with the Broncos to pull off the upset and get to the Elite 8, get to that Big 8 that they want to get to, because their offense is too high. And I've said it before. If you set the bar up here out of the screen, that high, when you come back down to earth, you're still at the top end of the screen here, right? They're averaging 102. Oh my God, they had a bad game. Now they're at 85. My point. You can't, it's just so high. So now for the Cougars side, I'm looking at, okay, offensively, can they have one game? Yes, obviously, we all know that's a possibility, but I'm not banking on that. They haven't struck me as that type of team a lot this year. They've had some high-scoring games, some 80-point games, whatever the case is, but they're not consistently enough. Defensively, absolutely. I've seen this Cougars team suffocate some of the best offenses in the best conference this season in the NAIA women's basketball world in the Crossroads. But the rebounds is what the final straw was for me. I have seen, and that's why I went against them in the first round. That's why I don't believe they can go that much farther, because a lot of these teams are great rebounding teams, and I just feel like you're putting an extra. If this wasn't Hastings, if you looked at the other teams, maybe I would feel a little differently. But this is who's in front of you, and the Broncos are a really good offensive team that will make you pay for giving them second chance opportunities, especially from a three-point line. It's too much of a recipe for success for the Broncos, so I'm going to go with the Broncos in this one. I think the rebound battle is the one that kind of solidifies it. If the Cougars make it past this one, I'll stop talking about the rebound battle with them, because clearly they can figure it out no matter what, especially depending on how this game goes, obviously. But that's just what I cannot go away from that rebounding number anymore. I just can't. I can't not look at it and go in favor of it, is what I'm trying to say. Game number 3. We're only going to do the first 4. And then tomorrow, you guys will see the last 4 that I feel like and how I'm going to pick them. So we just did, obviously, I can talk about Dakota, Wesleyan, Lindsey, Wilson. We just did Hastings and St. Francis. Now we're going to our first rematch of the regular season. It's a conference rematch, as a matter of fact. It is number 5, Georgetown versus number 1, Freed-Hardeman in the Naismith quad. That St. Francis Hastings game is going to be in the Kramer quad. It's a rematch, like I said. In the season, Freed-Hardeman has beaten Georgetown in both matchups, right? I'm a big believer in something, and I've said it before, and I say it again. It is hard to beat anybody, no matter how good that team is, 3 times in one season. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. Now, in the season numbers, Georgetown is averaging 67.5 points per game against Freed-Hardeman. They're shooting 42% from the field, 27% from the three-point line on about 11 free throw attempts as well, is what they're averaging. In the 2 games, it was a blowout in one and a 2-point loss in the other. I believe flip it, though. 2-point loss came first at Freed-Hardeman for the record, and then blowout came at Georgetown. For the Freed-Hardeman side of things, 83 points per game on what they're averaging, 54% from the field, 55 from the three-point line, 13 free throw attempts. I'm going to give you guys the raw numbers of both games, and then I'm gonna talk about the biggest difference from each team in those games. So in the blowout loss that Georgetown had against Freed-Hardeman, and this is early, I'm talking about like fall. They had 23 rebounds, 9 assists, 6 steals, 8 turnovers, 7 fouls. 2-point loss. They had 33 rebounds, 12 assists, 6 steals, 11 turnovers, 16 fouls. So the fouls went up, not great, right? The turnovers went up, not great. Steals stayed the same. Assists went up, that's solid. But the biggest number was the rebounds. Obviously, that was what I noticed the most. Very big on the rebound side of things, 10 more rebounds. And as a matter of fact, within those 10 rebounds, there were 14 offensive rebounds in those 33 that I talked about in that 2-point loss. That is the biggest note that I saw from that game. All right. From the Freed-Hardeman side of things, blowout win, 44 rebounds, 13 assists, 6 steals, 10 turnovers, 12 fouls. 2-point win, 26 rebounds. So they got out-rebounded, 10 assists, 5 steals, 13 turnovers, 12 fouls. So the fouls stayed pretty consistent. That's something I want to keep in mind here. And that's my biggest thing for the whole game now. The rebound battle, obviously, because you see it. The team that wins the rebound battle has won. The team that wins the rebound battle gives himself a better chance, because even though Georgetown lost, even though they won the rebound battle in that 2-point loss, they still were a 2-point game. So you see the rebound having a correlation there. But the other thing was the free throw attempts, right? 19 free throw attempts for Freed-Hardeman in that blowout win, 7 in the 2-point win. And the reason I bring that up is because Georgetown, to me, has been the most underrated team in the tournament. And when I say underrated, as if I'm not the one that's not talking about them. And I know I'm not, because, other things have been happening. But I understand what I've seen from this Tigers team. The Georgetown College Tigers are legit, yo. They are going to be a good team. That was a really, really good win against Loyola in the round of 32. So I'm not, ducking them, or I don't think that they're good. 82 points per game in the first 2 rounds, in the first 2 games. 48 rebounds per game. They are putting up about 15 offensive rebounds, 13 team fouls. 43% from the field, 31% from the three-point line, 21 free throw attempts. 21 free throw attempts. For Freed-Hardeman, 75 points per game, 36 rebounds, 12 opponents' offensive rebounds. Important note there. 17 free throw attempts, 53% from the field, 35% from the three-point line. My key stats, specifically, it's Georgetown. I think this game is fully in the hands of Georgetown. If Georgetown control the rebound battle, specifically offensively, and the foul game is in their favor, I'm nervous. And I'm going to say it first. I'm going Freed-Hardeman. I'll explain why in a minute. I'm going Freed-Hardeman. But there is a legitimate world where Georgetown pulls off the upset because of what those 2 things I just mentioned, right? Georgetown has proven that they can get to the line with the best of them. I mean, 21 free throw attempts per game is a ridiculous number. I talked about most of these teams when I was doing the numbers at around 17, like Freed-Hardeman. I believe Lindsey Wilson, 17. Dakota Wesleyan, I believe, might have the highest. I have to double check with Dort and Dakota State and all of them. But so far, for the 3 teams we talked about, Dakota Wesleyan has the highest, 26. Georgetown's right behind them at 21, right? And they're shooting it at a very good percentage. So not just getting there, but they're getting there and making it. Again, twofold problem. If you're on offense, good, easy buckets. If you're on defense, it's giving you, foul trouble now, and you got to worry about that type of stuff. And the reason I say the offensive rebound, Freed-Hardeman had the closest game in the round of 32 for any one seed. It was a 9-point game between them and Bethel of Indiana. Bethel of Indiana made a point on the rebound to try and, make it a little bit more in their favor. Now, do I think Freed-Hardeman is a bad rebounding team? No. I just feel like they're running into a lot of opponents who are really good offensive rebounding teams. And I think that's what's happening right now. I think Freed-Hardeman has to make more of an emphasis on that to try and take care of the rebound battle. I think that is what's going to push this game from a double-digit win for Freed-Hardeman to a single-digit situation where you don't want Georgetown hanging around. Georgetown was that every year in the Mid-South, there's obviously your two teams that you're like, okay, these are the two best teams in the conference, Bethel, Freed-Hardeman. Cool. You've got your team at the bottom of the pack that, it's a tough season. Comes of Kentucky, comes of Tennessee, were those two teams. So that's 4 out of the 6. Okay? Then you've got left are Lindsey Wilson, Georgetown. I believe that's it. Yeah, that's everybody. So those two teams, one is your kind of breaks through the ceiling team that's like, hey, this is a really good season for them. Lindsey Wilson. Then there's Georgetown. Georgetown is that team this year that you can't, that they might not win a lot of games. Right? There was a stretch where they went 2-3 in a 5-game stretch. But at the same time, they're not a bad team. Like, you look at them and you're like, yeah, they went 2-3, but like, I remember thinking to myself, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I'm not mad at them going 2-3. And that's the thing about basketball. You always got to remember, there's no ties in basketball. So someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. Just because you're the team that lost does not mean you are a bad team. Doesn't mean you can't beat that team. It just means you lost that game, right? I know you're looking at it. You've had both ends of the spectrum with Georgetown against Freed-Hardeman. 2-point loss. You're right there. A possession here, possession there. You're right there. And a blowout loss. So you know what it looks like when y'all are not locked in. And mind you, that was the home game was the blowout loss. So you could argue that the harder game was the one that y'all were really locked in on. And remember, this is a neutral site. No, Kentucky and Tennessee ain't that far from each other, from two cities. So maybe some teams will make the drive. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But even if they don't, it's even playing field. You know what I'm saying? So that's my biggest thing. For the key players, focusing on those two stats for Georgetown, obviously, Daisy Gale, obviously the player of our pod for the Georgetown team. The ability to get to the line is ridiculous. 9 free throw attempts is what she's averaging in the first 2 games. She's going to get to the line, y'all. She's going to get to the line. And she does it at a very efficient rate. She does it at a very good, consistent source of offense for her team. Again, clock is stopped, get some easy buckets. You as a player get to see some shots go in. Kyra Freeman is the other one. 18 points per game, 48% from the field. You are going to need some half-court scoring if you are for Georgetown. You cannot bank on the fouls, and that's kind of where I'm going to lean into to Freed-Hardeman's case, and I'll hold that note for a second there. My X factor in the rebounding department is Lashia Lazao. She's averaging 13 rebounds per game. 5 of them are offensive rebounds. So she's averaging 13 rebounds. She's had double-figure rebound games in both of them. Mind you, she's coming off the bench in both those games so far. Could see it where she starts. Not banking on it, but I could see it from a matchup standpoint. But 5 offensive rebounds. 5 offensive rebounds. So if you look at the numbers, she is almost at half what Freed-Hardeman is giving up from that side of the ball. These are the things that I'm looking at here from a storyline perspective on why I feel like there's a world where Georgetown does this. For Freed-Hardeman, Allie Weathers, the scoring she's had as a freshman in her first taste of national tournament play has been ridiculous. So I expect it to continue. And the 2 names that you've kind of heard all year from the Freed-Hardeman side of things, Jenna Satterley, she is a professional scorer. You're not going to, if she has less than 10 points, it's because she couldn't make a shot. Like, she's a scorer that no one actually takes her out of her game. She just has an off night. Now, the defense affects that. I'm not discarding that. Again, I was a defender at heart. I'm not discarding that. I understand it. But as a defender, I also understand when you're playing against certain people, they're going to get their numbers. She could roll out of bed and just give you 22, which is what she's averaging. Mind you, I know we went with Allie Weathers for the first 2 games. Jenna Satterley is averaging 22 points on 52% scoring. The only reason that we felt to go with Allie, we love the freshman story and we love seeing her come into her own. Jenna's been doing this, y'all. She does this. Like, this is what she does. This is the round now where you're going to start hearing some of these big names. Jenna Satterley for Freed-Hardeman, Macy Sievers for Dort. Those type of names. Tabor Teal from Dakota State. Like, those type of names, you're going to start. This is when you need those names. And I see Jenna having a big game in this one. I think this is going to be a game where we're looking at the box and we say, this was the Jenna game. This was her first big moment in the national tournament. So I'm expecting her to have a big one. I'm expecting her to have her big one. And the percentage might go down. I mean, 52% from the field is ridiculous, but that might go down a little bit. I could still see her giving 20, though. I could still see her getting 20. Lily Key, though, you are where I'm looking at here. 6.5 rebounds per game. And it's crazy that I lead with that because she's averaging 15, almost 16 points per game. But it's the rebounds. She is the biggest, rebounding presence for this Freed-Hardeman team. So you have to be able to control Lashia. You have to be able to control the offensive glass for Georgetown by controlling the defensive side of things. You got to limit them to one shot only. Now, I'm calling out Lily, but it really is going to be the Satterleys, the Weathers of the world, the guard play out there because long rebounds mean long shots. So you cannot expect Lily to go out to the three-point line or the free throw line to get these rebounds. In that same breath, you can't expect her to contest a shot and then go and get the rebound that probably is going to fall to her player if no one rotates over and picks up that backside box out. So, yes, I'm going with Lily because she is I believe, leading the team in rebounds, but that she's more of the personification of that stat. I do believe it's got to be a gang rebound mentality. I'm going Freed-Hardeman because it is going to depend on their effort on the Georgetown rebound. You can be the most aggressive offensive rebounding team in the country. At the end of the day, though, it will always favor the defensive team that's rebounding because if I crash hard, but I box out, if I hold my box out, it's over the back. It's a loose ball foul, whatever the case is. You know what I'm saying? The offensive rebound fouls don't happen unless they are the aggressive team. But if Freed-Hardeman is the aggressor, they're hitting first. They're pursuing the person before the ball. They're doing all the little things that coaches always say to do when talking about rebounding. They will get a lot more of those calls. They will be the ones that put Georgetown in foul trouble. They will be the ones to control the rebound battle. That is how they win this game by 10 points. I think they can still win it if they lose the rebound battle, but I feel like the rebounding and foul situation is what's going to allow Georgetown to stay in the game longer than you would imagine. I think it'd probably be a close first half. The third quarter might be the quarter where I look at it and I say, whoever wins this quarter probably wins the game. And I think Freed-Hardeman wins that one. It's by 1 point. A win is a win. A win is a win now. So now you got a 1 point lead going into that fourth quarter. That's all you got. That's all you need. That's all you need. So I'm going Freed-Hardeman this one. It's going to be a really good one. Love to see what is going to happen in this contest. Last one for part one of our Sweet 16 previews. Then I'll head you guys over to the next one. Number 2, Campbellsville versus number 6, Spring Arbor out of the Liston Quad. I'm actually just focusing on another Mid-South team here, y'all. I'm looking at Campbellsville. I'm very interested in this. No secret. I think that Campbellsville has been, they're one of the best teams in the country. Don't get me wrong. They were actually the team that I was forgetting in the Mid-South. I was like, no, I'm forgetting somebody. They were, and it kind of sums it up right there, where they were the forgotten team for me a lot of times in the Mid-South. And I don't mean that like I forgot about them like I just did. I mean so that you're looking at Freed-Hardeman and Bethel, the top 2 teams, hands down. You're looking at Campbellsville of Tennessee, Campbellsville of Kentucky, tough year, whatever the case is. Lindsey Wilson clearly surpassed my expectations of the regular season for them. And then you got Georgetown, where I was like, I don't want to forget about them. Campbellsville was always that last team. And put an example, Lindsey Wilson beat Campbellsville. Campbellsville of Tennessee beat Campbellsville. I believe that was the only win of the Mid-South run for the Phoenix, obviously, is what I'm talking about. Campbellsville is still top 15 team in the country. They're going to be they're a legitimate Red Banner team. Like, don't get me wrong. But you're running into a team in Spring Arbor now. I like Spring Arbor, y'all. I like them. I really do. Spring Arbor has played tougher opponents, in my opinion. Indiana Tech, 3-point game in the first round. Handled them. Tennessee Southern, hottest team in the Southern States. Great season. Handled them. Campbellsville, this is what I'm looking at. I don't even look at the numbers. I'm not even looking at the average, I should say. Look at the numbers. Playing against Bryan out of the AAC, obviously Campbellsville was the better team. What do? You go handle business. 91 points, 30 of 59 from the field, 11 of 25 from the three-point line, 20 of 27 from the free throw line. The Tigers out-rebounded the Lions 32-27. They forced them into 26 fouls. They had 24 to 13 assists, and turnovers were a little closer than I would have liked it to be, 20-17, but they still won that. Then they go to LSU Shreveport. Pilots out of the Red River, one of the best teams all year as well. They win. They only put up 6 points. Interesting. 22-51 from the field, so I'm not going to say about even, but in the 50s in field goal attempts, right? Put it like this, 8 less field goal attempts, 8 less makes, like that. 9-29 from the three-point line, about the same amount of attempts, 2 less makes. 13 of 18 from the free throw line, around the same. The rebound battle, 27-24, favor the Tigers, but a lot closer than the first game. 19-11 the fouls. They do a really good job of not fouling in this game while forcing the Pilots into foul trouble. 17-15 in the assist margin. Pilots win that one. 20-19 turnovers. Pilots win that one. So what I'm looking at here is the Lions also, again, the Lions are not better than LSU Shreveport. And in the game that you're supposed to handle, you do your business. You do what you're supposed to do. But then in a game against a team who's been a top 15 team in the country roughly all year, a team that was the best team in the Red River, a team that has played against some really good competition and competed against them, national tournament teams at that, there's a significant drop. And if you look at the numbers, it screams like when there is a closer level of competition between themselves, meaning the Tigers of Campbellsville, and their opponent, it's a lot closer of a ball game, y'all. A lot closer of a ball game. I said in the first round of the Mid-South, I'm going Georgetown over Campbellsville. What happened? Georgetown over Campbellsville. I just knew it. I knew it. Even in the points in the paint, Campbellsville beat the Lions in that one. But then they lost to the Pilots in that department in the second game. Spring Arbor has been, I believe, a better team than Campbellsville so far in the tournament. They have. There's one glaring hole, big hole, in this game for the Cougars that would be the biggest reason that they lose this game. Biggest reason. The foul trouble has to be fixed. Has to be fixed. And it's crazy in saying that because Spring Arbor was hosting their pod. So most of those referees have seen them all year, for the most part. And they were the ones calling the fouls. Now, some questionable ones, I'm not going to lie to you, some very questionable ones. But 24 fouls in 2 games? 30 free throw attempts in 2 games for your opponents? That's way too much. Way too much. Right? And I'll even keep an eye on the turnovers. Spring Arbor is a fast-paced team. They're going to force a lot of turnovers, and they're going to give up a lot of turnovers, so I understand it. But definitely want to point that out. But it's the fouls for me. It's the fouls. Multiple players with 4 fouls going into the fourth quarter, or in the fourth quarter with more than 5 minutes left to play. I know one player fouled out in the first game. I think one might have fouled out in the second game as well. Not 100% sure on that one, but I know for sure in the first game. And 2 or 3 people finished with 4 fouls. So if the foul trouble for Spring Arbor, and I understand I don't expect them to have 0 fouls in any, you should never expect any team to have 0 fouls in a basketball game. It's not realistic. It means you're not playing physical. You're not playing great. No, absolutely not. But 24 in 2 games is a lot. 12 per game, it doesn't seem like a lot, but we're talking about the national tournament here, y'all. And a team that is a defensive team. And one of the reasons you are a defensive team is because you should be able to be disciplined on that side of the ball. Again, Spring Arbor plays at a fast pace. They're going to force turnovers, but turnovers always got to be steals. They don't got to be steals. I remember watching that game against Indiana Tech. And Megan Zeitz, who is one of the players that I'm focusing on here and obviously player of the pod, had a really rough first game against Indiana Tech. Much better second game. I expect that Megan Zeitz to continue to play in this game against Campbellsville. I believe it was also a foul off of a free throw. I think they scored. It was late in the game, and Megan got called for a foul in front of Coach Williams, in front of their bench. And Coach was livid. He was livid because it was a bad foul at the worst time possible. Now, I get it. Megan, young, sophomore, which is crazy, by the way. And I understand it. But, again, it's a national tournament. We can't have those type of fouls. And I feel like there was so many of those fouls. So many of the fouls, 94 feet away from the basket, some bailout calls. Again, some bad calls. Don't get me wrong. Some bad calls. But I still think there were a lot of calls you just didn't need. So keeping an eye on that for the Spring Arbor crew. That is my biggest concern in this game, the fouls. Key players, talking about Megan. Ashley Weller, 19 points per game, 53% from the field. Think she has to have a very good offensive game for them to have a really good chance. My X factor off the bench, freshman Rylan Goodwin. Lord, can that girl hoop. Dang, can that girl hoop. 11 points per game, 40% from the field, again, off the bench. She was, in the first game, she was the reason that they, I'm not going to say won. I want to say won, but I'm not going to say that she's the reason they won. I'm going to say offensively, she was the reason they stayed in the game long, right? Because obviously on the Indiana Tech side, Taylor Covington did not have a good game. Ryan Moore was about to have a masterclass if she wasn't in foul trouble either. She could have had 30 even. But Goodwin was the one for the Spring Arbor crew. Always felt like she was involved. Started the game, I think, like 3 for 3 from the three-point line, something like that. Like, she couldn't miss. It was an impressive game. So she is my X factor off the bench for Spring Arbor. For Campbellsville, Hallie Allen, obviously she was our player of the pod. Really great shooting performance for her in her first 2 games. Then I'm going D. Bradley, 12 points per game. I need a bench player. Give me a bench player. I just talked about in, very high praise for what Goodwin's doing for Spring Arbor off the bench. Not to say that the rest of the starters for Spring Arbor aren't doing anything, but she's just playing at a very high. She's being a 6th starter right now at the best time of the season. I need that from Campbellsville. I expect the starters for Campbellsville to do very well and to be able to start the game out strong. But when coach goes to the bench, there cannot be a drop-off. At least got to be even. Because when coach for Spring Arbor goes to the bench and Goodwin comes in, there is going to be no drop-off. There's going to be a level, or I would even argue an uptick, because at that time of the game, obviously, not everybody's 100%. Some people are tired, fresh legs, whatever the case is. She's got fresh legs, y'all, and she's bought into this role of being a 6th starter, so I'm very excited to see what she's going to do in this big-time game. I need the same thing from Campbellsville. I am going Spring Arbor. In this one. I just feel like when, and this is a test for Campbellsville. If Campbellsville wins this game, I'm going to be a lot more of a believer. But I need to see them do it against a team that is like Spring Arbor. Very good defense. It's going to make you work. They're going on a little bit of a streak themselves. Again, they first round, Bryan, team that got bounced in the semifinals, I believe it was, maybe even the quarterfinals of the AAC tournament. Then they played an LSU Shreveport team that, very good. I would argue Spring Arbor is better. Right? I don't think that Campbellsville has played a team yet that is better than Spring Arbor. This is going to be their first big test, in my opinion. I want to see what they do. I'm trusting Spring Arbor a lot more because I've seen their consistency all year. Let's see what Campbellsville has to say about that. But that's going to do it for part 1 of our 2-part Sweet 16 preview. Hope you guys did enjoy. Then the last 4 games will be posted tomorrow, Thursday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, a.m. Make sure you guys are tuned in for that one to get you all ready for all 8 matchups in the Sweet 16. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch y'all in the next one. Almost at 100 subscribers, y'all. Let's get there. Let's get there before the end of the season. Peace.